Welcome back to the Anthony Murphy podcast. Today on the show, we are talking to Lewis, the founder of Boost Media Agency, and we are talking to Lewis about all things PR, public relations. So Lewis founded his own agency, and PR is what he does best. We talk to him about what PR can do for you and your business or your personal brand. We talk to him about how he started his agency and what he offers to the market. We also touch on a few do's and don'ts in regards to PR and how you can best get in touch with Lewis moving forward. So stay tuned. That episode is coming up next. Thanks for joining us. Boost Media Agency is your company, mate. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I'm super excited.
Yeah, mate. If anybody who follows you will know that you're a big fan of that game they call golf. So, mate, tell us about golf first and foremost. Where'd you get into golf? And I think you're pretty handy with a golf club, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so I actually got started. My dad played like his whole life, and so I actually caddied for him when I was like 9, 10 years old. He paid me $10 to walk around with him and just take his clubs. He got me my first ever golf club, which was a 9-iron. But I didn't actually start playing until I was about 15. So like year 9, year 8. But anyway, I got pretty good pretty quick. I was playing AFL, cricket and golf. And then it's like, you know what? I'm the best at golf out of all 3 sports. So I'm just going to go full time at that. Well, at least go hard at that. Then, yeah, I ended up going to college over in America for a couple of years. So I played in Kansas and then at a school in Ohio. Came back to Australia. I wanted to turn professional, but I had this moment. I can remember it so clearly. It was at the Dunes Golf Club in Victoria. So second hole there. I remember just like looking around and thinking, God, if I try to turn pro, the next 4 years of my life is going to be battling around average golf courses, literally being broke. I think it was at that moment I kind of changed my mind about like, I didn't want to play professional golf anymore. It just didn't feel right. Had a quarter life crisis, but I mean, golf has shaped me into the person I am today. And as you probably know, when you play sport at like a high level, it requires like discipline, patience, hard work. And so for me, it was like super easy just to kind of translate that into business. I just, took all the same skills and, character traits and it kind of helped me get off the ground quicker, if that makes sense.
Awesome, mate. So good. And to add a little bit of context to everybody who's tuning in and listening in, watching in, you founded and run Boost Media Agency, which is essentially how we both connected several months ago now. But mate, Boost is in the PR world, and obviously you have your specialties in that area. Again, that's how we connected. And mate, can you tell us how you formed the agency? Where'd all that sort of start?
Good question. I got into it through one of my good friends. We grew up together in Canberra. He moved to Canada and started doing all this stuff online. And one of the things that he got into was like building sales teams. So, he'd recruit sales reps and like plug them into companies to essentially scale them up. And so he said, look, I got this super cool opportunity. You've got the kind of demeanor and personality to get into this kind of thing. So long story short, I started working in remote sales for a company doing a similar thing based in the US. But after like a month or two, I really didn't vibe with the guy who ran the business. It left me in some awkward positions with the clients that I brought to him. So that was kind of like, fortunately, he didn't give me any kind of contract. There was no non-competes. And I was like, you know what? I learned his whole business inside and out. Like we had access to everything. And I was like, well, he's in the US, I'm in Australia. What's he going to do? So I decided to start Boost, and it's been a great ride ever since.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. And how long has the company been around?
So about since February/March 2020. So we're knocking on the door of like 18 months, 2 years.
So good. Yeah, no, awesome, mate. Awesome. And again, like obviously that's how we connected. We connected and you've assisted us with some PR for our agency, which was absolutely fantastic. And it was something that, it's funny how the universe works sometimes, right? Because it was something that's had been on my radar. And I mean, we're going back probably 12 months ago now. But it was something that was on my radar as needing to be something that we looked at from our own marketing. getting into that PR space. Obviously, we're heavy in digital and social, but tapping into PR was something that was definitely sort of at the forefront. And then all of a sudden, I get an email from you, and it's just like, it was meant to be. It's funny. It's happened. That sort of scenario has happened quite a few times, sort of along the 4 or 5 year journey that we've had with Attention Media so far, where all of a sudden these opportunities just land in your inbox, or connections are made, and then all of a sudden something really good happens. So that's exactly what happened for us, and we had a great experience from that as well. Like we've picked up 2 clients from that one article essentially, plus had lots of other leads come from it as well. So it worked. It's awesome. It's well and truly, it's been a great use case for us, and hence why I wanted to get you on the show, mate, and talk more about PR and all of that goodness. So excited to sort of dive into that. So talk to us, mate. No, go. Mate, right time, right place, and yes, it was fantastic timing. It was fantastic timing, mate. So in regards to that, let's talk PR. If let's just sort of start back. What is PR? What are the origins? What does it sort of look like? And what is it that you or Boost Media Agency offers to the market?
Yeah, so I guess in its simplest form, public relations is simply how your business and brand is presented to the market. We like to do that through leveraging the media. And so we're taking the company in a little bit of a different direction now. So we've worked with a lot of clients in a lot of different industries, and I've just kind of wanted to innovate and see how we can add more value. So one of the, I guess, it's not becoming a personal branding agency, but I like to really emphasize the fact that PR is like a huge part of building a brand online. Like everyone's kind of, marketing and yelling to the world, right? It's like, we want to help them cut through the noise and build a brand that really stands out authentically. And so I kind of look at it as there's 3 core pillars to a brand a personal brand. It's public relations, podcasting, and just overall your branding. So things like this are great because we can get on here and chat and offer value. And ultimately, we just work to position people as a respected expert in their field and give them the credibility and ultimately recognition that they deserve as well.
Yeah, and I think it's there's probably, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this as well, but a lot of industries where PR isn't really a thing, but it should be, and especially for us, 3 to 4 years into starting an agency, having a small team, trying to, make our mark in the industry, increase our market share, all those good things. But again, PR is one of those things that we just didn't make enough of a priority in the early days. And I think, again, as you mentioned before, it's such a vital piece of building your brand and having authority in the marketplace. And for us, it's really super clear now that that's definitely a key piece of our marketing strategy moving forward, right? But even for myself personally, right? For me, my personal brand has been, it was the foundations of our agency, right? It all started out with me, and it kind of grew from there and then became a company and so on and so forth. And that's something that I'm definitely placing much more focus on now moving forward as well into the future, is getting back to building my brand from a, it's a lead generation strategy, right? It's a network building strategy. It's making connections. It's business development essentially, and PR is going to play an important role in that as well, because it establishes you as an authority in the marketplace. It allows you to raise a flag essentially, and it also forms lead generation as well. We've had clients come from it. So would you agree with all that?
Yeah, 100%. I really like to always look at what the top people in whatever industry are doing and kind of model that. And it's become abundantly clear that so many people are just leveraging their personal brands for all their business. 90% of our business comes through my own personal brand, right? Except funny, my Instagram got deactivated on Monday, so I'm going to have to go through some loopholes and try and get that back. I've heard so many people, 2 of my friends here got their accounts just I'll tell you later. I'll explain it later. It's a complicated situation, but
yeah. No, I realized that before. I tried to look up your Instagram earlier this morning and it wasn't there. So I was like, what's going on? But anyway, back to PR.
So it's definitely a key part of the big players strategy. And yeah, that's just kind of what we want to bring and like bridge the gap for, smaller to medium businesses and personal brands that aren't getting, their door knocked on by the media and the news and podcasts, and just really essentially facilitate for them to kind of fast track it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, a really good piece of advice, I can't remember whether it was from Jack DeLosa, but, somebody sort of in that space saying that, you need to, even if you're a small business or a startup, you need to act like a big business, right? You need to have that mentality of doing things properly, and competing with the bigger end of town, right? And PR obviously forms a big part of that. So there's no reason why. And obviously your agency is a perfect example that there is a need in the marketplace for SMEs, for sole traders, for coaches, whoever it might be, to again have some form of PR strategy in place. Who do you feel like? Who is sort of your target market with Boost? Are you focusing on people more with personal brands, or are you looking to try and work with corporates? Where do you sort of place yourself?
That's a good question. I guess we're kind of in an interesting period right now where we're sort of transitioning away from just working with the businesses. Obviously, we've worked with a ton of personal brands, but I really want to just help people build their personal brand. So whether they're like a CEO of a big company, like I actually had a call this morning with a mortgage broker, and he was telling me, he's like, look, we have 30 brokers, right? And they have no idea what they're doing on social media, right? He goes, some of them put in some effort. And he even gave this example of this one guy, right? Who's a terrible mortgage broker. Terrible, he said. But this guy is so good at personal branding himself. He gets so much business just by giving out content and value. And then he just has a team that takes care of the actual mortgage broking stuff. So like this guy's killing it. Yeah. And he doesn't do any of the work because he's just building a personal brand. So yeah, that really shifted my like mindset on it today too. I'm like, there's a huge market of people who are in these like, sort of older industries, not like brand new and flashy, like digital marketing and stuff, but like mortgage brokers, finance stuff, where they just don't know how to build a brand. So like guiding them through that and, helping them attract more clients.
Yeah, 100%. And I think at the end of the day, like that sort of ties perfectly into that whole ethos of, people need to know, like, and trust you before they're going to do business with you, right? So obviously that's the beauty of social media, for example, is because that it gives people, that real-time, raw, authentic, way to connect with you and learn more about someone, listen to them speak, watch their videos, all that sort of stuff. And over time, you sort of, you build that familiarity. And PR is very similar, where, you're getting to share stories, give context to what, the brand or the business does, give a more in-depth explanation into who individuals are, like we just mentioned. So yeah, again, it's just about, marketing in general. Hey, it all comes down to distribution and building an audience, right? And obviously PR, fits that perfectly as well.
Yeah, definitely. And just one thing to add on to that is that, like, I always give the example of if I'm getting a message from a business Instagram page, right, versus a person, I'm always going to want to respond to the person because it feels there's more of a connection with that human interaction. So that's really what I kind of emphasize as well. It's like, we want to not just brand the business, but, brand yourself as the face of that business. So
yeah, 100%. And you have, you have really, really large brands. Like, we can think of, multiple, really well-known brands across the world. But again, like if you had the choice to connect with the business's social media accounts as opposed to talking to somebody inside the business, you would generally always go to the person inside the business because there's that human connection element, right? So not to say that obviously, brand is really, really important, but it's that, it's just a human trait, isn't it? It's connecting with another human being, which makes it so powerful. So that's awesome.
Correct. Elon Musk, great example of that.
100%. Exactly. Everybody loves Tesla, but gee, if you had the chance to tweet back and forth with Elon, you'd take that every day of the week. Mate, so for anybody who is interested in, looking at their own PR strategy, right, and getting a little bit more serious about it, what is the process like? Like on a sort of a step-by-step breakdown, if somebody was to look at engaging yourself and Boost Media Agency, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I guess we just have an initial consultation just to learn about the goals, what you're kind of looking to get out of it, target audience, and also just like keywords and SEO sort of strategy behind the articles. So like we haven't really touched on it, but what I really value in PR as well is like the fact that you can rank an article in Google for like, we have the leverage to get the number one result for a certain search term. So it's kind of like, it's almost an unfair advantage in that sense. Like I write a bunch of articles just to purely, serve our purpose of generating more leads. And, it's nothing crazy, but I just get like maybe 2 or 3, sometimes like 5 people just randomly book a call because they found something of ours like in the internet. But yeah, so I guess we just kind of like to see where they're at, see what they're looking for, and then come up with a game plan, whether they're just after some media exposure or like a full kind of personal brand revamp. It's all pretty customized.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really good point as well. It's not just, an article that goes on to, another website. It's all of that other marketing goodness that comes with it, right? Because that article is being published on a website that has high domain authority, lots of traffic, the backlinks to your website, obviously, in terms of organic search and SEO and all that sort of stuff. Like there's all those added benefits as well, not just obviously what you get purely from the exposure from the PR article as well.
Correct. This is how I explain it. There's 3 pillars to it, right? There's 1, the exposure on the website. 2, how you leverage in your own marketing and your own social medias. And then 3, the keywords that we can rank them for, so that it's like, you've got these 3 pillars of it that can really amplify that one piece of content. And just, it's not like you're paying $50, $100, whatever, to Facebook a day to, keep the ads running, or even Google for, $5 a click, whatever they're charging these days, right? It's like you have this piece of content that can rank at the top forever. So it's super powerful in that sense.
Yeah. I love that. And it was a really, really frictionless process as well when we worked with you, because like you said, it was it was customized for us and the piece that was being written. So obviously, we had conversations in terms of, the strategy of the piece. And then literally you guys do all the heavy lifting from there, right? Like you wrote the article, we get to review it, we get to, approve it. You also came up with and developed images and stuff that we could share on socials when that piece got published. And it was just a frictionless process from start to end. So if there's anybody out there thinking about PR, it's definitely, it might seem overwhelming at the start, but that's where obviously you come into play. And that's the value that Boost Media Agency provides, is that you can take it from start to finish. You can, have that initial meeting to talk strategy, and then from there, it's a very frictionless process with all the benefits at the end.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And we essentially aim to make our whole service just done for you. So literally, once you complete our onboarding form, like you don't have to do anything. You just sit there and wait for it all to happen, which is great. Because like as a business owner who's doing their own PR, like I've had hundreds of conversations this year of people saying like, either they paid a ridiculous amount to another company, didn't really get anything, or they've spent 5-10 hours a week trying to find a journalist, connect with them, send them a pitch, and it's just like the journalists get hundreds of pitches a week. So it's kind of like you got to be able to get the content on the desks that call the shots. Otherwise, it's like you're just knocking on. You're not.
Yeah, exactly. And that also sort of, that point there comes back to a piece of advice that I got from my business advisor, in saying, you need to, as a business owner, you need to ask yourself who, not how, right? And that point exactly there, instead of trying to, understand how to write a PR article, how to get it in front of the right journal, how to get it picked up and published, the question is who. Because as a business owner, depending on what stage of business you're in, but pretty much any time, trying to figure out PR, doing it all yourself, is spending a whole lot of time on something that there are specialists out there to do that for you, and we'll be able to do it much faster, much better, and you'll get much better results from it. So it always takes me back. Always think about asking who, not how.
Someone recommended me that book last week, so I'm meaning to check that out.
Perfect. Sounds good, mate. Do you have some, speaking of doing PR, are there some do's and don'ts when it comes to PR? And again, obviously, if somebody was to work with yourself, it's not necessarily something that they would have to worry about, obviously. But just to wrap some more context around it, if somebody is trying to do it themselves or is new to the space, are there some do's? Are there some don'ts?
Yeah, I would always just say be authentic. That's simple. It's kind of like a number one rule in social media and online. Pardon me. There's a lot of people who are, it's kind of inauthentic and fake and whatnot. So I always just say be authentic. And, another point is really leveraging your story. Stories are the most powerful form of communication. And what we really want to get out there is not just like some fancy editorial piece saying how good you are, but like really telling a story so you connect with people on an emotional level. Yeah, I definitely think authenticity and storytelling are key. In terms of don'ts, don't do the opposite to that. Basically, don't
Exactly.
don't lie. Don't there's people. What the online marketing world is like. People have a 3K day and then they put a 7-figure entrepreneur in their bio, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. So it's like, don't be that guy. Essentially, that's the only don't.
Love it. Good piece of advice. Mate, talking about marketing in particular, what is your take on like the current marketing landscape across all areas, like PR, social, paid, all of the different aspects? Where do you think we're sitting in terms of the current digital landscape? Are there any particular trends that you're kind of watching, predicting? Is there anything that people are doing on a day-to-day basis that is just not working anymore? Like, what are your thoughts on what's happening in the marketing space in general?
Yeah, I guess it depends where you look. Obviously, like I think Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are all amazing tools, but they also have a completely different purpose and audience. Like, I mean, I look at Facebook as kind of the lowest end of the spectrum. You've got all like the marketers and coaches trying to get them to each other's courses and stuff. I really see LinkedIn as like the gold mine of all of them. The Sales Navigator tool on LinkedIn is like one of the most powerful business tools in terms of connecting with the people you want to connect with. In terms of like direct response stuff, I think like LinkedIn and Instagram are definitely the best. Just in terms of like trends in general, kind of how I mentioned stories before, a lot of people are really leveraging stories in their content, in their copywriting, because I think in the last 3 to 5 years, people have really caught on to that idea. It's an easy way to like invoke emotion.
And it's authentic as well, though, isn't it? Like if you're telling your story, you're not trying to fabricate something. You're just telling your story. So it's authentic. It just comes back to that authenticity piece.
Exactly. Gets the connection going, gets people to understand you, and really build a relationship.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of your industry, you're saying LinkedIn Navigator really, really effective. I feel like depending on what industry you're in, that's definitely a really underutilized tool as well. So what makes it effective in your case?
Well, I mean, you go onto any platform and, it can be hard to find the right people. Whereas Sales Navigator, let's say that I wanted to only work with, CEOs that are in a company from 1 to 10 people living in Ohio in the United States in the technology and finance sector, right? I can make the search that specific and it will only show me the results that match for that. Yeah. So if you understand your avatar and know who your audience is, it's like the most simple tool to be able to get in contact with them rather than spend, hours trying to manually find it. It just does the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah. Love that. Mate, one thing that I did want to ask before, again, just to add a little bit more context to the whole PR piece, is what are can you tell us about some of the connections and, the places where, the publications where your pieces do get published? Like if somebody was to have an article written and that's going to be published, what sort of, like, where is that going to show up? What sort of publications are we talking about here?
Yeah, so I mean, we have access to probably close to 50 different publications now we do stuff outside our typical services for some clients, just depending on, their story and if we think we can land them. But yeah, I mean, platforms like Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur, Yahoo, all the way down to like some smaller, more local ones. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of the big three that everyone sort of wants. But yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose and the point there as well is like, there's a lot of versatility or options, I suppose, in terms of, regardless of what industry you're in, chances are there is going to be a publication that is going to suit, to take on an article in your industry effectively. So there's plenty of options out there.
Correct. And the way that we're structuring things now, we're going to kind of incorporate our guaranteed service model into some more, I guess, what I call traditional sort of pitch PR.
Yep.
Just because we're taking on clients in different industries and we really want to work with them long term. So it's kind of about really getting them in the right places, the right podcasts.
Yeah.
So kind of expanding what we're doing. So yeah, we're pretty much in the first month of like beta testing. It's all going really good. So we've just got to keep the ball rolling there.
So good, mate. So good. Love that. A couple more personal questions, and this is more around yourself, obviously, with the company now heading towards sort of 2 years in operation. Do you have any advice for other business owners listening in terms of whether it's running a business or being a high performer, reaching goals, all that sort of stuff? Is there any sort of advice that you can share with people on what sort of worked for you?
Yeah, so for me, it's just about like good habits. So I always wake up early, have a really solid morning routine that I do every weekday, just to really get me prepped and ready for the day. And obviously planning the day is super key, time blocking. It's kind of business and, time management 101.
Yeah.
But it's like anything, like if you master the fundamentals, then you're going to be fine. And just in terms of like actual business advice, the best advice I ever got, and you probably heard the same thing, but it's like, literally just worry about getting that sale in the door. Like when you're starting out, people are like, oh, I've got to design a fancy website. I've got to get my marketing, all these posts, copyright. Like you can sell before you've got any of that. And that was like one thing that my first mentor taught me. He's like, he saw me doing all this other stuff. He goes, dude, please, like, I beg you, stop doing all that. Go and prospect, go and talk to people, connect with them and see if they want to buy your service, because until they've bought your service, you don't know if it's like it's not validated
you
yet.
don't have a business.
Yeah, correct. So I think anyone who's like starting out is just like spend most of your time generating leads and then spend the other 20% of the time building the business, doing the branding. It's all super important, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I see too many people who just think a shiny website's going to just do the trick. And yeah.
It's so true, mate. And I, different mentor, I'm sure, but I had the exact same advice where it was like, you just need to spend your time. And, this is when we're a team of 3 or 4 at this point as well. And he's like, you just need to spend the majority of your time on sales. He's like, it just all needs to be revenue generating activities, right? And I think, again, perhaps this was from Jack DeLocia as well, but a business that's doing under $1 million worth of rev a year needs to spend 80% of their time on sales and marketing, and the other 20% of the time on the other stuff, the logo designs, all that sort of stuff. Again, it doesn't bring money in the door. You need to be making those connections and bringing sales in. So, super important, and it's a very important lesson, because at the end of the day, I think we can both agree that for most businesses that don't succeed, generally the problem is cash flow. It's sales. It's that oxygen that a business needs. And at the end of the day, that just comes down to there wasn't enough focus on those revenue generating activities.
Correct. And to an outsider's perspective, it can sound a little bit, shallow, if you will, for like, oh, you just got to get the money. But like, it's all about, if you don't have sales, you don't have a business, you can't pay your staff, you can't pay your overhead. So it's just one of those things that it is the oxygen of the business.
100%. And I like your point there as well. Like it can sound not quite right, but again, like, anybody who's sort of in business and has values and is selling ethically, that's not a problem. It's about, providing your solution to the marketplace and just doing that in a way that is sustainable and is going to, help you grow your business long term. Because otherwise, the future's not too bright. Mate, how can people best get in touch with yourself? I'm sure there'll be a number of people who are thinking about PR and just need that extra little push, and hopefully this podcast is that push. So how can people connect with yourself, man?
Yeah, normally I would say get in touch with me on Instagram, but for now that's on hold. You can reach me, just connect with us at boostmediaagency.com, or you can find us on Instagram, boostmedia_agency. Just shoot us a message there and one of my team will get in touch, and then it'd be great to chat with anyone who is keen on learning about PR.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for your time today. Obviously, we'll have all those details in the show notes as normal. But Lewis, thanks so much for your time, man.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me.
So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you love the show, the greatest form of feedback you can give is to leave a review. It helps the show grow, it helps more people find it, and I would really appreciate that. Head over to anthonygmurphy.com where you'll find all the show notes and links for today's episode. And if you just want to stay up to date with me and see what I'm up to, head over to Instagram, Anthony G. Murphy, and say g'day. And I will talk to you in the next episode.